the one and only Duke Roufus. Duke, how are you, sir? Oh, there he is.
Here we go. I'm doing
Yeah.
great.
Where you at, Duke?
I'm at home today. I'm just getting ready to go to practice.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time. Sorry it took me a little bit longer. The schedule got all bumped
no
around.
Worries.
But we appreciate you. Can I just say thank you for doing that for the sport? And I mean this, we've had this debate a lot of times on the show about when's the right time. And I know coaches and corners care about their fighter, but we've got a weird culture, man, where people don't want to pull the trigger on something. And everybody knows Anthony is tough. Everybody knows he's capable. Everybody knows he's a good fighter. He doesn't need to take unnecessary punishment. Tell me why you made that call and if you agree with my general assessment.
No, I do. It's the kid's tough as nails. We went through that in the Dos Anjos fighting for the title. The older I'm getting, we grow up in a Rocky movie culture. Rudy, it ain't over till it's over. We have a great positive mental attitude, not to quit, not to give up, etc. But sometimes it's to a fault, and I just, and stylistically, this isn't a guy that you can jab and grab and coast on, like, say, in a boxing or a Muay Thai fight with your hand damaged. Here's the thing. Tony Ferguson is a very mean elbow expert. Now, if you know anything about Muay Thai, the only thing that keeps an elbow expert off you is hard punching and good clinching. With Anthony's hand damaged, he couldn't keep him off of him getting elbowed. Secondly, he can't clinch him or even submit him if his hand is jacked. So sometimes you can risk injuries in a fight against a guy like Tony Ferguson, who likes to hit people with those elbows. I just thought it was the right decision. Tony's a hell of a fighter. His numbers speak for themselves, and he showed in his performance. I mean, Anthony was, just so close to taking him out, and he's a very resilient warrior. And it's just sometimes you gotta know when to fold him. And I just thought it was the right decision. He's got a fracture behind his knuckle, and tomorrow he sees a specialist in Las Vegas to see if he's going to need surgery. So if you look at my hand, you can see a lot of fun things. I'm trying to get that in the camera. I'm missing knuckles. You can see how bad my hand is. Yeah. I'm living proof of sometimes you need someone to help you, man. I love my family. My wife has been with me since we were 26 years old. I was, and she lived through my whole crazy fight career. And I'm not going to lie, my life isn't glamorous. I wake up every day in pain. Thank God to the Terp House, who's got me on CBD oil to help with my inflammation. The medical care that was given in my day to fighters was garbage. So I have so many bad injuries that I'm living with, and I want to help the guys I train and women not live a life that I live, because I live in pain daily. And maybe if I would have had some fights where I didn't fight, go into a fight injured, or I didn't continue to fight long after, because I started doing the math on when a fighter fights injured or continues to fight, the winning percentage from my experience is quite low. And I just started to think about that more. Actually, Anthony, 3 weeks before the Dustin Poirier fight, he got stitches in his head real bad. He was sparring another guy, and they accidentally headbutted, and he was cut bad. So in the corner that whole night, just a horrific experience, knowing what I knew coming into the fight, that those stitches aren't going to hold up, the cut isn't going to hold up, and watching him bleed like that, I just can't be a party to that anymore. It's just tough. So I'm really looking for honesty and transparency from my fighters, because sometimes they hide injuries from me, and we can't have that. We're in the hurt business, especially MMA. Boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, you could jab and grab and tie up, and the referee will break you, and you can stall when you clinch. MMA, the action doesn't stop. So when you're a wounded animal in there, it's easy to get taken out. So that being said, MMA is so dangerous. I just thought it was the right decision. I mean, on a really positive note, Anthony told Tony in the octagon right after the fight. Bro, that was the most fun I've ever had in the octagon. Even though he didn't win, his spirit is high. He's high. He's very focused, hungry again, texting me all day about what we're going to do to improve and et cetera. So, his spirit isn't broken. We didn't get the win, but I think he was a silver lining on a really tough night for the UFC and MMA. Him and Tony, of course. Tony, too. Tony, much respect to him. No trash talking, just a little machismo, a lot of heart, a lot of will, and just they embraced afterwards, and they're cool.
All right, so a few things to follow up here. I can't tell you how many times, Duke, and I know you've heard this probably more than me. I've heard so many times a fighter say, well, I've told my corner that if they throw the towel when I'm in trouble, that I'll never have them corner me again. They essentially blackmail emotionally their corner. Have you ever had a fighter tell you that, or have you ever heard of something like that? Because that to me seems incredibly toxic.
They don't mean to, here's the cool thing. I was a high-level fighter, so I understand that. And then I understand coaching now. And that's the one thing I have for these guys, empathy. I understand their mentality. A lot of these guys risk a lot to fight. And I'm not talking health. They time away from their families, careers they could have pursued. Other opportunities go on the back burner. So they get a very extreme mindset. I have a hashtag I like using a lot about that life. They become different people. When you're a prize fighter, you're a different man or woman, especially the great ones, So I don't see it as toxic. It's overcommitted, and it's hard to scold someone for being overcommitted. So instead of taking that away from them, if you fire me because I stopped your fight, I can live with that. No problem. I'm going to live with that. And you're going to see me doing that more because, the neat thing, what I love about MMA is a loss doesn't define your career. Anthony did exactly what he said he was going to do. He came to perform. And that's what we love about fighting. When fighters fight great fights, it's 2 rounds of back and forth entertainment and a lot of great techniques from both guys. And it was a fun fight to watch. So that's one thing I learned when I was fighting in Japan for K1. Yeah, you want to win the fight, but K1 was an entertainment-based sport. Japanese MMA was. And I've always kind of coached from that perspective. And if you see my guys who do perform well, they're very popular. Anthony Pettis, Paul Felder, he is very popular. Even my newer middleweight, he's 4-1 in the UFC with 4 finishes, and he has 2 bonuses. Gerald Mearshart, very popular guy. John McDessie just got his first bonus under me. Tyron Woodley has 3 bonuses in his last 5 fights. Take that for boring folks. So
it's a fair point. Let me interject if I may. There's an argument I hear all the time, and I don't think it's a very good one, but it's a hard one for me to make talking to somebody like you. Now, again, we're on the same wavelength here, but I'd be curious to get your position on it. I hear this all the time, like in the case of the Raquel Pennington non-stoppage. I'm not asking you to weigh in on that. However, I made a point because people afterwards were saying, well, no one knows a fighter like their corner. And I believe that to be true. I would not challenge that. But it also occurs to me, Duke, that a fighter can have a corner that loves them and cares about them and believes in them so much that they can overestimate how ready they are for another round and then send them back out there. It's like knowing a fighter is important, but knowing when they've had enough seems like a different skill.
100%. There's no handbook in coaching fighters, just so, it's not as, this isn't as advanced and as organized as, say, football, international football, soccer, baseball, basketball. Those sports are over a century old with a lot of data and techniques. Relatively, I call the UFC, they say it's a 25-year anniversary of it. It is technically, but UFC changed a lot. MMA when Zuffa took it over 18 years ago. To me, that's how old the sport really is when we went into the commission era, et cetera. So I think, me, I expect my fighters to grow from every experience. Well, I have to grow from every experience. And I'm always trying to get better as a coach, a fighter, a mentor, or excuse me, not a fighter, but a teacher, a mentor. It's important for me to grow. It's 2018, not 1998. Um, and again, the elements in MMA, just a fact of the MMA glove, that's one thing. Getting hit with these bones like you do, that's the stuff that hurts, man. Knees, elbows, kicks to the head. There's a lot of brutal fights the other night. And, maybe I'm getting soft in my old age. I'd rather be soft and have peace of mind. Anthony and Sergio, I'm going to be friends with them for the rest of my life. They're my good friends. Annette, his mother, sent me a very well written message that made me feel like I did the right decision. One of their brother Ray too. Like these people, I got to be there for them. Could he have won? But if I go back and I look at the research of fighters who have gone into fights hurt, the numbers, there's no asterisk next to when you go into a fight and you lose because you're injured or coming into it. I think that's the biggest thing that's hurting our sport. Too many fighters fight when they're hurt, and weight cutting. Those two things are what's going to hurt our sport in the long run.
How do we fix it, Duke? I mean, I think part of it is obviously what you're doing, making the right call, coming in and talking about it, explaining your reasoning, setting the example. That helps. But you're just one guy, powerful guy, but you are just one guy. How do we get better as a community about this?
I don't know, man. I'm not on the soapbox. I'm just here to do my thing. It's like I just want this hopefully to be, it's all right. I mean, uh, I remember Paul was depressed after his fight, and Dana White sent him a really thoughtful message. A lot of the guys, they get so defeatist, and I get it. I've been there. When you lose, it feels like your life's over. It's very gut wrenching. No one wants to lose in front of God and everybody, especially on a big event like this weekend. But the UFC does tell you that's not about winning and losing. Yes, it is, and it isn't. But the fighters I work with that perform on the regular, the UFC loves. Bellator too. We have a lot of great fighters in our sport that are winning. Our big problem, we need stars. We need stars that perform. And, at the end of the day, the public wants performing. So if you have a fighter that performs well, but they can't continue to perform, protect them. The other thing, everyone complains about money in our sport. Don't tie your whole sport into one fight making money. Save yourself so you can fight often. That's something I learned in Thailand. When they see a fighter's hurt, the referee stops the fight. If they see someone's got an injury, the referee's closest to it, they'll pull the plug, even though maybe a fighter could keep going. The culture in Thailand is they fight for a living, so they fight often. They might fight 10 times a year, 8 times on the minimum at the high level. So they need to protect their body, and that's what, you can be tough, but tough only lasts so long. You got to realize, especially again, Tony, the only way you're keeping that big beast off you is what Anthony was trying to do, box him off. He's nasty with those elbows, great fighter.
And unrelenting with them. 2 more questions for you, Duke, and I really appreciate your time. I certainly don't want to dredge up the past, but I have to just ask one question about it, namely the incident a few years ago, the kid in the amateur show that was related to your camp. Obviously, there was a lot of complicating factors, including a botched weight cut and a whole lot of commission failures there. But with what happened to him, has that partly informed? I don't know if this is a change for you, but partly informed what you're doing now about being proactive with the health of these fighters when they get into these weird predicaments?
No, that doesn't have much to do with it. It was a sad incident, but there's other factors that I can't get into that go on with that. That being said, MMA is a completely different animal than kickboxing, Muay Thai, and boxing. Like I said, I've fought many a times with my hand broken, but if you're fighting the right type of fighter, you can get away with it. At the end of the fight, if I'm winning, I can teep you, I can trip you, I can grab you. But the thing is, the fight keeps going in MMA. The other thing, you're going to need your hand to grapple. So no, it's different. They're apples and oranges there, you
All right.
know. You know, it's and the other thing too is I live in a world where we get from the outside as coaches, we get so much perceived control over situations. I don't have control over any of the guys I train with. I'm sorry. All my fighters on the regular don't take my advice regularly. Everyone, amateur to professional. So how I've learned to navigate that is I don't give orders. I don't ask anything. I suggest. That's my new terminology that keeps me sleeping happy at night. I suggest something because all my fighters ignore everything I say, from weight cutting to conditioning to they do. Ask any one of them if they will agree. I mean, so instead of butting heads with them, I kind of take the way Angelo Dundee trained Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali did his own thing. Most of the time, he didn't listen to his coaches. This isn't the NFL or the Premier League in England. I'm not the controller of the fighters. I'm an employee of the fighter. That's what people forget. I have a gym they all train at, but at the end of the day, these guys make decisions that I don't always agree with. I didn't agree with Anthony fighting at 145, but I supported him because he's my friend, and instead of fighting on it, I'm try and help him make the best of a situation, and that's just who I am, I get though, I'm not going to argue with these guys. They're alpha male, female people. That's who they are. If I go home every day and get butthurt about them not listening to me, I might as well quit coaching. I have many people from amateur to hobbyists that, that they don't listen to me. It's a nature of coaching. Once you figure that out, you'll learn to be a lot happier.
All right, last question about this. And again, I really appreciate your time and your perspective. One of the things that occurs to me is you made a great choice, an important choice, the right choice. I couldn't compliment you more on the courage it took to make it. But what also occurs to me, though, is you made it in the course of this, in this context of this long-standing relationship you've had with the Pettis brothers, and in this case, Anthony. You've known these guys for a long time. They've known you for a long time. So the question is as follows. It's two parts. One, what did he say to you in the locker room about it afterwards? Because as you noted, he doesn't seem upset about it at all, which was great to see. And second of all, if you could talk to other coaches who might be listening, what is the key to having a relationship with a fighter so that you can make a call like that and afterwards everyone goes home not happy that they lost necessarily, but happy that they live to fight another day?
Just you got to create transparency in the relationship. One of our biggest things we focused on is communication. We have an advantage at Roufus Sport. We don't have a big gym, so I don't have a crazy amount of fighters I work with. I'm real close with all the people that I travel and go to fights with. That's my biggest thing. And understanding everyone has the same goals, meaning, yeah, you want to win, want to be successful, want to be a champion, but what's our ethos? How are we going to become a champion? What are we going to do? Like, what are our team's core values? When I say team, the team of the fighter and the coach. Is it win at all cost, or is it win because we did everything right, or are we just hoping and showing up and rolling the dice? It hurts. It did it. I told Anthony 3-4 times, I'm sorry I stopped the fight, but it's just I felt it was the right thing to do. I mean, like I said, and you're going to see me. I'm getting on my guys too about not fighting injured anymore. I was just talking with Coach Skipper Kelp backstage Friday about one of my K1 fights. I lost a fight because I fought with my ribs hurt. I've done that so many times, and I'm not going to let my guys lose. Quit rolling the dice, man. The house always wins, right? And gambling. Well,
Right.
so, you're injured for a reason. You're going to lose. You're fighting elite guys, especially if you look at the murderous row of guys that are fighting Anthony Pettis. He's not fighting, entry-level UFC guys. They're all guys who are at their peak right now. That being said, I want to make one point. I know the UFC doesn't want to do this. They need more weight classes. A 15-pound spread and a 20-pound spread is too much weight. That's why guys are going to start getting hurt too, because they're either going to be too weak when they fight, or they just have too big of a size advantage for a guy who can't make that lower weight class. I think we need 165, 175, 185, 195, etc. I think it would help the sport big time. Sergio Pettis, he didn't have the performance he wanted, but he's also contemplating, under my advice, to go to 135. Sergio's 3-1 at 135 in the UFC when he came in. The only guy he lost to is Bruce Leroy, who he was handling him until Serge dropped for a leg lock. Bruce Leroy, reversed the situation and took Sergio's back. So it wasn't like he was getting beat up because of size. He was winning that fight up to that point at the end of the third round. So I think that Sergio's a much stronger 35er. Sergio debuted at 145, and I'm seeing so many guys depleting their strength, their hunger. I think the weight cut's harder for some of these kids than the fights are, and that's why you see, kind of flat performances from them. I come from a mindset. We need to be a lion. You got to feed your lion so he can be the king of the jungle. I don't want a house kitten who is neutered and has no bite. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. You know what? We got to get moving, Duke, but I could talk about this all day. Let me just say, I think I speak on behalf of a lot of people I know, certainly inside media. Thank you for making that call. Anthony can hold his head up high, and you guys can get back at it when he's healthy and ready to go. And I know that the sport will be ready to welcome Anthony back as soon as that happens. Thank you so much, Duke. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, there he is. Duke Roufus, ladies and gentlemen.